Hi, I'm Kay Whitt, designer for Serendipity Studio, and today I'm going to show you how to make a great circular jewelry pouch. I have one here to show you how it looks when it's open, and you may have seen one before. It's got 8 little sections here, and what I love about these, my mom gave me one when I was in high school, and I've actually used that one all these years, and I decided, you know, it'd be fun to share this pattern. So I created a pattern for it, and it's just so easy. You'll want to make one for everybody you know because they're fantastic to travel with. So let me show you the pattern and how I chose my fabrics for it. Notice that this one has, we've got an outside fabric, we've got a lining, and we've got yet another one, and I get crazy and I've even put a 4th fabric in there. That's not something you have to do. You could make the whole thing from one fabric, or you could choose some scraps you had left from another project. It really just takes so little fabric. Over here, I've got my little fabric rainbow, as I like to call it, and I have actually grouped different ones together that I thought would be great together. So you can see like 4 blues would be great, or if you wanted neutrals or blacks, there's just endless possibilities with this type of project. So I've got my paper pieces here, my patterns, and what I've done is I've put them on freezer paper, and the reason that I did that is because if you're making a lot of these, it's really easy to just lightly press this to your fabric and it sticks just long enough for you to cut it out and do whatever tracing you need to do, because the large circle has buttonhole markings, and I just do it this way, that way I don't have to measure every time and they're in the exact right spot. So I've got buttonhole markings on this one, then we've got our medium circle, and the small circle is for our foam stabilizer that will go in the middle of the pouch. So I've got my fabric cut, and we need just a little bit of fusible interfacing to give this project some body. So I like to do that on my outside. This one is actually going to be my outside circle. And I have marked here and here for my buttonholes. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and get my buttonhole stitched. I'm just stitch one for demonstration purposes here. So we'll go to the machine now and get this buttonhole stitched. So I'm using a contrast thread just so that you can see it well against this fabric. Normally I would probably choose like a white, or this fabric's so colorful I could probably use a green or a teal and it would look nice. So let me get this lined up and we'll get our buttonhole stitched. That ought to be just about the right spot. Okay, and here's my finished buttonhole. I would use a seam ripper very carefully to cut that buttonhole open, and then I would stitch and cut the other one open. So I've got one over here at the table ready to go that I can show. Oh, and the other thing that I forgot to mention is notice that I've got this circle traced. I found that when I made these, if I left my opening for turning the circle along the edge, that getting that edge back and edge stitch was really tricky, and it was kind of a time waster. So what I figured out is if I made my slash in the middle, then I could just turn the whole circle, because by the time this is finished, this part is completely concealed and you don't have to worry about it. So what I like to do is I do that before I stitch the 2 circles together. That way I don't accidentally snip a layer that I would not want to cut. So what I would do is just fold this in half and then cut all the way to my marked edges, and then that way it's ready to go. So this one would be layered right sides together with the other. And notice I put that buttonhole only on the outside layer. That's because I need to create a channel for my drawstring that I'll be using later to open and close the pouch. So here's one that I have already stitched right sides together, and notice I've got my slash and I've clipped these curves. That's so that when I go to press this, I get a nice smooth finished edge. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this one. And the great thing about having that slash in the middle is I can just take my hand and rotate around and smooth that seam. And now I'm ready to press this before we edge stitch and add our channel for drawstring. So I'm going to come over here and just press that edge I'm just kind of working my seam to get that nice and smooth. And we're just about there. Flip it over and check the other side. It's always good to check both sides when you're... Now, before I take it to the machine, I want to show you a couple things here. Notice my buttonholes. I'm going to edge stitch, then I'm going to stitch 1/2 inch from the finished edge and 1 1/4 inch from the finished edge all the way around and create my, my drawstring. So let's go to the machine and do that. Before I can do that, I've got to get the machine set up for my regular foot. There we go. And I've got to pop my seam guide in. Now I could mark this circle, but I don't really like to do it that way. I really prefer to use a seam guide, and there's a little spot. Most machines, you just have to check how your stuff works for your machine, but this one I've already measured, and this will be 1 1/4 inch from my needle. Let's see here. Okay, and we're back to center needle and we're good to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is edge stitch this edge, then we'll go 1/2 inch and then 1 1/4 inch in, so. Okay, we're back around to the beginning. We're going to do a quick back stitch. And now we'll go to the 1/2 inch. We'll be right next to the buttonhole this time. And this will start the first line of stitching for... Note that I'm following a line on my throat plate for this line of stitching. Okay, we're at the beginning of that one again, so okay, so we've got 2 lines of stitching done. Now we'll do the last one, and that is 1 1/4 from the finished edge. That's where I'll be using my seam guide. And you can always adjust it one way or the other. It's really just like, I'm going to move it in just a little bit. Let's see, just a little bit more, just till my seam guide matches the edge of the finished edge. And we'll go around. There's that other buttonhole. Okay, all my stitching is done on the outside circle. Now I'm going to show you the inside circle at the table. So we've got this one finished. This is our lining side. And notice I've got that slash in there. That makes it super convenient now for me to use my fusible foam stabilizer that I'm going to slip just inside of this slash, and just kind of, you just kind of have to feel that it seems about centered. Take it over to the ironing board, give it a quick press. I like to pad the centers of my, my jewelry pouches because it just gives your jewelry a little extra cushion when you're traveling. And it gives this more structure to the finished project. So this one is now in place. And this is my medium circle. I stitched it exactly the same way, except no buttonholes and just edge stitching around the edge. Now I will center it right around, right inside of my other stitching, and you can see the other stitch is just in here. I just kind of eyeball to see, make sure that it's centered. And then what I will do is follow the markings. Now these markings came from this little guide I have, and what I did is I just marked with a chalk pencil all the way around and then used a ruler to extend those markings. So I'm going to take this over to the machine now and we'll start stitching this circle and I'll show you how these pockets are then divided. All right, so we'll start. I like to start just right before one of these marks because then when I make it back around, I'm ready to go right down one of those straight markings. So we'll back stitch a little. Okay, my circle is stitched and I'm right back at one of those markings, so I'm going to turn the machine, I'm going to turn my piece and go down one of these just to show you how that looks. Oh. And then this would be repeated for all the other marks to divide your 8, to get your 8 pockets. So let's go back up here. I've got one finished. Notice my stitching has followed that center circle and all of the markings out to the edge of that medium circle. So the last thing that needs to be done is to add that opposing drawstring. I call it an opposing drawstring because you've got 2 buttonholes. So you're going to take your cord. You're going to take the cord and insert it into one of the buttonholes. And I'm using a safety pin. I'm just old school like that. If you have a bodkin or some other fancy tool that you like to use to feed cord through a drawstring, certainly a drawstring through an area, you can do that. Now I'm coming back around to this buttonhole. I'm not going to pull this cord through this buttonhole. I'm going to bypass it because in order to make an opposing drawstring, you have to have 2 openings that pull against one another. So I will go ahead and pull this on through and just work my fullness around so that the project lays nice and flat while I'm getting this cord in place. I'm just almost back around to this other buttonhole. And I will remove my safety pin and get my 2 ends together. I'll go ahead and trim this one just a little. And what I would do is tie a double knot here so that it can't go back into the opening because we don't want that. So we've got one. The other one would go in exactly the same way into the other buttonhole and fed around and knotted so that when the project is finished, you can simply pull this up and tie it. Tying is not necessary, but it looks pretty. So that is my simple project for making a circular jewelry pouch, and it makes wonderful gifts. So the next time you're looking for something quick and easy, give this project a try.